So I just want to start off with an introduction about the session. Firstly, I want to introduce myself. I'm Jo HEDGES. I work as a company associate for Always Possible, who are the organisation who are programme delivery leads for Essex 2020, which is an Essex partners initiative. My background is as an event producer, a festival director, and I also work as a lecturer in events and entertainment management. I'm currently transforming a 3-week physical festival events programme into a 1-week digital festival. So the topic of today's roundtable is one that's very close to my heart, and I'm very pleased to be able to come and chair today's session. We also have Vicky Tremaine, who also works for Always Possible, who's on the call, and she's supporting us with hosting and technical management of the call today. So thank you very much to Vicky. Essex 2020 is the biggest celebration of science and creativity in the UK. And if you've not registered or engaged before, you can do that at www.essex2020.com and find out all the details for further and upcoming digital events and activities. So the topic for today's roundtable is turning physical events into online experiences. And we'll start the session with 4 lightning talks from our speakers talking about their own experiences of transforming events into online spaces. After which we'll go into a Q&A session and a discussion which everyone on the call, all the participants, can take part in. So I just wanted to quickly do some important housekeeping. Actually, I've got an added point on the top here, so polling. So Vicky's going to put up a poll which should show up on your screens, where we're going to ask you about your thoughts about how much you know about this topic, I think, at the beginning of the call, and then at the end of the video, the session, we'll also then put the poll up again for you. Just going to take that off my screen. Great. Recording. This session will be recorded. This isn't going to be a live stream, but it will be recorded, and we'll be using it potentially as a resource in the future, as a public resource. So if you don't want to be seen or heard, just mute your mic and your video, and then you won't be seen on the screen during the recorded session. Video and audio etiquette. So you'll see in this session that you can hear our speakers, but you can also see and hear one another. So it's up to you if you want to keep your video on. We like to see you, but you're also welcome to turn your video off if you don't want to have that. And please keep your mic muted unless we're asking you to join in either by asking a question or taking part in the discussion. And then obviously you can unmute yourself and we'll be able to hear you. During the Q&A, to try and keep things orderly, we're going to use a chat box, which should be at the side of your screens, to collect your questions. So if whilst the speakers are talking and after the speakers are talking, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and I'm going to go through them one by one, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. And then regarding the discussion, we don't just want to hear from our wonderful speakers, we also want to hear from you if you've got input and you want to share your experience. So if a question's been posed and you would like to share your input or an answer, then you can use the raise a hand function, which I believe is again at the bottom of the screen. It's a little yellow hand that you can click. And that shows me that you've raised your hand, and then I can invite you to take part in the discussion around the question. I think we're going to get a lot of questions, and there's obviously a lot of burning issues that are going to get raised. So we might not linger too long on any one question because we need to try and get through everything. Just one last thought as well, you can use a chat box function to share links to any useful resources. So again, if topics are coming up and you know that there's a great resource online, feel free to put the website link in the chat box. And at the end of the call, we're going to collate all of the information that we've shared in the chat box with one another. We'll put that onto a fact sheet or a resource sheet for you, which will get hosted either on the website or sent out to you. Okay, so I want to do, oh gosh, no, I'm going to, let me move it. There we go. Back to speakers. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the speakers we've got online with us today. So first of all, we've got Frazer Merrick, who's the Education Co-ordinator at Signals, a digital arts charity based in Colchester. Signals specialise in film education, digital art and media production for social learning and creative outcomes. They support creativity and learning at all levels, including working in schools, community groups, cultural and third sector, and with new talent. Today, Fraser is going to talk to us in a minute about translating creative workshops into online spaces and the challenges and also the possibilities of using online platforms. Next up, we then have Francis Lynch and Herbie Clark from Electric Voice Theatre, which is a contemporary music theatre a cappella ensemble commissioning, creating, cutting-edge vocal music for theatre performance, participating in creative multidisciplinary collaborations, and Electric Voice Theatre not only perform and tour internationally, but also research and develop collaborative work and deliver creative learning projects. So today, Frances and Herbie are going to tell us about how they've been transforming their creative programme from working, including working with choirs, summer songwriting sessions, creating set commissions and future performances, and turning that work into online work. Next up, we have Hannah Ford, who is a freelance events producer. At the beginning of lockdown, she launched Live for Love, which is a charitable live streaming campaign that brings together musicians and DJs from across the nation to live stream in aid of UK food banks. All the proceeds are directly donated to the Trussell Trust, and the campaign has so far raised over 39,000 with 400 streams so far, as well as collaborations with festivals, brands, radio stations and venues. I believe the campaign's now in its about 11th week, and I know Hannah and her team are looking to raise £50,000 in total through this work. Today, Hannah's going to tell us about her experience of launching a brand new online programme and campaign, as well as the challenges and opportunities of streaming music and live entertainment online. And last but not least, we have Alistair Watley. Alistair is the artistic director of the Original Theatre Company. He's a director, producer and actor, and his work's been performed all over the world. He originally set up the Original Theatre Company in his university rooms in 2004, and it's now an organisation and one of the now a leading organisation, one of the UK's leading touring theatre companies with a multi-million-pound turnover. Today, Alice is going to talk to us about the processes the Original Theatre Company are currently going through whilst remaking their production of Sebastian Faulk's Birdsong from scratch and under lockdown for online audiences. Okay, so I'm going to hop back out of my slides for a quick minute here. There we go, and I'm going to pop my video back on so I can see you all. Ah, there we go. I can see you all. Hello, I'm Jo. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the call. So I hope that was a good bit of information there and you feel comfortable in the way that this session is going to run. If you've got any questions, do put them in the sidebar here, and I will, in between, after the speakers, make sure that we read through everything that's going in the chat bar. But first of all, let's start with our lightning talks from our speakers. And we're going to start off with Frazer, if you're ready to join us, Frazer.
Yes, good morning.
Great,
hello everyone.
Thank you.
I'm just going to share, I've got a couple of slides, so I'm going to share my screen with you all. So let's get that started now. And let's jump to the right one. Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, good morning. My name is Frazer Merrick. I work for Signals, digital arts charity here in Colchester. Throughout lockdown, we have been experimenting with different ways of taking our creative workshops online. So we primarily work with young people from ages 7 and upwards, and we had a number of projects ongoing, and we at the start of lockdown had to kind of move a lot of projects across to an online platform like everyone else, and that kind of raised some challenges, obviously, but then also raised a lot of opportunities. So I want to go through those today. So there's a couple of different ways of running a workshop online. And it will all depend on what it is that you're trying to achieve as to what platform is going to work best for you. Now, that might seem like a bit of a cop-out answer, but it really does depend. So we've been using Zoom, but I also run a music charity, and I've been doing online music workshops. And for that, we've been using Google Hangouts, although that will shortly be turning into Google Meet. But I know other people have been using Microsoft Teams as well. So some organizations are locked to certain pieces of software due to safeguarding reasons. So, for example, schools might only use Zoom or only use Teams. So if you're looking to go and work with another organization, you maybe need to be prepared to use the software that they have been using so that you can kind of make it as easy as possible to get in there. You know, it's hard to get into schools anyway, let alone trying to convince them to change a piece of software. That's nigh impossible. So when you've got that part sorted, what are the limitations of teaching online? So a lot of what we do as an organization with Signals is around this idea of digital divide, and who has access to what, and how is that going to hold people back? So when considering teaching online, do you need to think about what equipment are these people going to have access to? Is it tablet? Is it a PC? Is it a laptop? Is it a Mac? Does your workshop rely on a specific piece of software that only works on one of those, or a website that doesn't work well on one of them. How about, so with the music workshops I run, towards the end of the workshop, if people are working on their computer, we might ask them to upload what they've created. Now, if you live in rural Suffolk and you're 5 miles away from the nearest exchange, you need to build time into that workshop to allow people to upload. Or maybe it might be something along the lines of, are you expecting people to upload stuff whilst also streaming their workshop? How's that going to work? And then one of the biggest problems I've found, or rather challenges with online workshops, is this idea of one-to-one support. What online workshops lack is that over-the-shoulder thing you do as a teacher. As you walk around a room, you see, oh, I can see what you're doing there, or you can kind of catch those mistakes before they maybe materialize. It's harder to do that online. So understanding how you maybe can adjust your workshop to suit that. But that aside, there are some benefits as well. Your audience or your participants are going to be using their own equipment, and they're going to be in their own space. So arguably they're going to be more comfortable using those resources and being in a space where they feel welcome, especially if you're working with audiences who maybe suffer from lots of anxiety or have any kind of autistic spectrum condition. Working from home on their own computer will probably be much more preferable for them. And this also kind of taps into this idea of flexibility with location. And it ties into that last bullet point as well. But if you can run a workshop online, now I'm in my attic studio at home here, I can do a workshop kind of whenever, really, any time of the day, as long as it's not clashing with anything else. I don't need to worry about booking the room out. It's my own room. So there's a lot more flexibility for you as a workshop leader, but also for, hopefully, for participants as well, with when they can come along. And online learning does suit independent working really, really well. So you don't have that person next to you, maybe distracting you, or maybe you do if you're at home, but it kind of suits that independent way of working. So when you sort of boil those points down, there are some challenges, but there's also lots of opportunities. And it is really important to kind of think about what the opportunities are and understand that if you want to run a workshop online, it's not maybe the best idea to take what you're already doing in a physical space and say, cool, we'll just do it digitally, because it isn't that easy. It might work, but it could probably work a little bit better if you adapt it to suit the environment. So these are a couple of key things that I've found that work really well. So having an assistant. So like today, we've got a speaker and we've got someone else doing the technical side. That means as a workshop leader, you can focus on delivering and someone else can be there to kind of iron out any technical problems. Thinking about those technology issues, stick to cross-platform technology. So if you can find a website or an app that works on Mac and PC, it's going to make your life a lot easier. A lot of the workshops that we run all have some sort of off-screen element. So we say, here is a brief, go and work on it. And that might be building something, it might be doing something else. So you can turn off your camera, you can turn off your microphone, and they can just focus on their own for an element. And last but not least, arguably the most important one you can do with this, and I'm sure everyone else will reiterate this, is test. Have a dry run. Set up your live stream and set it to private, or do your workshop invite a couple of friends in and do a dry run, because if it can go wrong, it probably will. So make sure you've done a test before you do it for real. Cool. That's me. Thanks very much. If I can find my mouse.
I'm going to unmute myself. Frazer, before you go, do you have a final top tip for us?
I think it would be the test one, really. It is make sure that you've had a go at doing it first before you actually do it properly. So if you're live streaming, you can live stream to a particular device. So you can point your live stream to something that's private. But if it's a workshop, you can invite people in and do a dry run and make sure any kind of technical elements have been tested. And if you can, view from multiple devices as well, so you know what it looks like for someone who's using a tablet versus someone who's using a laptop.
Yes, that's really true. Yeah, definitely. And I want to say as well, we did test our technical stuff this morning, and I still got my PowerPoint slides not working. So even when you test, sometimes it doesn't work. But there you go. Yeah, okay, thank you so much for that, Frazer. We'll come back with the questions. So now we're going to hand over to Francis and Herbie from Electric Voice Theatre.
Oh, right. Great.
Yeah, you're in.
We're in.
Thanks,
we're on.
Thanks, Frazer. That was really interesting. We're going to kind of doubly say some of the things you've said and disagree with something as well. Go on,
okay. Well, anyway, basically, just letting you know who we are. I'm Herbie Clark from Electric Voice Theatre. I work on the production side of what we do, also the marketing, and I'm also a guitarist, and I perform on stage with Francis when we do our things out in theatres.
And I'm Frances M. Lynch, and I'm the Artistic Director of Electric Voice Theatre, and I'm also a composer and a singer. And as was said before, we do kind of quite out there stuff. And we've been doing that for many years, but recently we've been working very much in the UK now. Of course, this is quite a tricky time for us, because what we normally do is we go to a location, because our work is really about trying to connect people with women scientists and women composers from their area. So we're highlighting the work of women scientists through music, and it's participatory. So we contact people about their heritage. So we're looking at women from the past who come from that location, and we're looking at people who are working in that location. So we go into laboratories, into engineering environments, and we look at and experience the work, which is a really important part of what we do. And then we take that into schools or community groups of various kinds, and then we do a big performance at the end. So for us, this seemed like an impossible task. It's like, how can we do all this online? And actually, in a way, like Frazer was saying, of course you have to adapt it, but actually I think you have to start from the place of thinking about what you do best. You know, it's what you do that counts. It's your creativity and what you have to offer that counts. And actually, you shouldn't be afraid of the adaptations and the technology, because there are lots of people out there who you can ask, and that's really what we've been doing, isn't it?
That's true, yeah. And just to let you know, we were going to work with Essex 2020, bringing some workshops into schools, and we were going to be working, well, we still are actually, with Essex Music Services, introducing children to some of the work we do, and introducing them to scientists, bringing them in and getting the scientists to talk about the different disciplines that they work in.
But that's still, you're right there. So we're still working with the music services, but actually what we've tapped into there, because we were very lucky. We got a grant, an emergency response grant from the Arts Council, as well as some other funding. So we've been very lucky in that respect. In fact, we only got 2 days notice before another project, which was going to run in Northamptonshire. And we ended up running a 10-day festival with 2 days notice, which is a bit mental, but we learned a lot. And in fact, on this occasion, we're able to tap into music services, what they've learned, and they're attaching, as Frazer, to teams, which we've not used before, but they're going to train us about how that works best and how things work on that. So we're going to tap into their expertise, and that's really what we've been doing all along, is ask, find people who are doing it and ask them what works. And the other thing, I think, for the live performances, so we are going to be doing live performances. And we have done some. We have done, a couple of things, but we're going to start looking at live streaming and various other things for the final thing. But what we really think, you were saying about testing, that the technology works. I mean, from our point of view, we have to think of it in terms of rehearsal. So we are actually rehearsing the technology for a week, or 2 weeks, as if it's a theatre. So that we're, actually getting very familiar with it. And the other members of the company, because we have quite a few members in the company, would be on the other end pretending to be participants and getting bored and that kind of thing for us. But there are other things, aren't there?
One of the things we're going to be doing is starting a community choir as well. But as you know, it's all going to be online now, which is going to be something very different. We did do a little bit when we did our a festival at Brixworth Festival. That was online. But now we're going to try and sort of create that for Essex 2020.
And it has great advantages having a virtual choir, because, of course, what happens is that people who wouldn't normally come to a choir, wouldn't come out, that you were kind of saying about that as well, Frazer, people wouldn't come out to something, will join in, because they can have their video off, they can have their sound off. We sometimes ask them to unmute and do mad things because of the latency. It's a bit complicated. But, and we're also recording. So we're, in terms of getting people to record so we can make a whole piece out for the choir, we get them to record and to send us the stuff. And we send them a whole lot of information about how to do that, how simple it is. We record them simply on Zoom. We use our technology that we've always used to make it sound better. So we don't have to worry too much. So it's quite kind of, for us, it's quite an interesting process, you know, how to get everybody to sing in time and all the rest of it when they're doing their recordings. But we've found that with just a small amount of information, people can do a really good job.
Yeah, certainly can. We're also commissioning an artist called Jack Cornell, who's a brilliant young artist.
Brilliant.
What he's going to be doing is making a massive panel based on a Spitfire that's hopefully going to hang in one of the shopping centres. Also, we're going to be making some electrical coils and massive banners. And this is all going to be based on some of the women that we're going to portray,
The
who come
famous
from
Essex women.
the famous Essex women who come from Essex. So we're going to be portraying us, and one of them.
But of course, all that has to be online. So he's now creating animations and films that will go along with the stories of these women from Essex. So when we do the performance, we've also been making podcasts, which is something that we can do because we've always been recording and making programs. We've made lots of programs for children's radio and things like that, storytelling. So, and we do storytelling. So we've been making podcasts, which are coming out every week. And we found that a really good way of disseminating the kind of information. And in fact, that's a huge advantage because people can see these things on a regular basis rather than just heading for one performance. So I think it's been in lots of ways, and reaching different communities, being able to send things out in different ways, it's been really helpful. Yeah,
and we were, as maybe some of you may know, going to perform this at the Chelmsford Civic Theatre, but that's not going to happen anymore. So that is going to be online, and we're going to have some dates hopefully pretty soon to kind of let everybody know. But we should inform people when that's going to be. Yeah,
we're not advertising. There we go.
There we go. That's it. That's our pitch.
Fab, thank you so much. And I think it's showing that you're learning as you go, and everything's a work in progress. But it sounds like you're just taking every opportunity you can get to see what you can do.
That's right. You just got to dive in. That's what I think. You just got to do it. You know.
Definitely.
What happens?
Do you have a final top tip for us?
Rehearse.
My tip would be as well is that get familiar with technology. There's a lot of technology out there, but just get familiar with something that you're going to be comfortable with, because that's the way to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to the lovely Hannah Ford. Hannah, if you're right there.
Hello.
Hi, I'll let you tell us about Live for Love.
Nice. First of all, thank you, Vicky and Joe, for inviting me on. It's great that you guys are talking about this because it's so crucial right now to our industry, how we all move forward. So I am an events producer, and I'm used to, as you all are, working in the physical space. I hadn't ever done anything virtually. And then just before lockdown, so I would say maybe a week before lockdown, one of my big jobs got cancelled, and this was before everyone was sort of panicking about it. So I had the initial, oh no, what am I going to do about work? And decided to actually forget about work, forget about being employed, and start this charity campaign. So with that, I was seeing lots of my friends do live videos, and a lot of them are musicians and DJs and producers. And I'd go on Facebook and you'd see another person doing a video. And I was thinking, why don't we harness this into bringing about a charity element? And at the time, I was doing a lot of research into the Trustnell Trust and to food banks that had obviously been stretched at the start of the lockdown and are now. So I thought, why don't we start a campaign that brings together all these people that are live streaming to include the hashtag and the fundraiser link. And it started off initially with just me and some of my friends. And then about a week into it, one of my friends got involved and we formed a little team of about 10 of us. And we started scheduling every single day different performers that were going to be on. So each day we'd have 6 different artists on, and they would all be sharing the campaign link, the hashtag, and we would be commenting, trying to get people to donate. So we did that every single day for about 9 weeks. And then over the last couple of weeks, we've reduced it down to 4 days a week. So it's been really like full on campaigning every single day, working, 12 hours on this. It's been quite mental, but we have seen it's just sort of exploded, especially at the start, where there were so many people online watching and interacting with stuff. So it kind of just got bigger and bigger, to the point now where we've had over 400 streams. We've raised nearly £40,000 for the Trustnell Trust. And yeah, we've got a great little team working on it, and we have Zoom calls every single day. But I'll just show you how it would work in terms of someone getting in touch with us and how they get involved. I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see if I can do this. Will that let me do it? Can you guys see that? Okay, great. So we were really lucky to have some graphic designers that were friends of mine get on board and create this whole brand identity, as well as people that were marketing strategists, video experts. So many people started helping out. So yeah, just an overview. It's been going for 12 weeks. Our sort of values are believing that you can do it, community, bringing people together in an online space, supporting each other, and expression. And this is how people will get involved. So, for example, we've had lots of festivals partner with us, lots of brands, we've had radio stations, we've had venues, and then we've had individual artists. So a festival might get involved with us that haven't done a live stream before, and we would work with them to create a lineup, create an online presence, an event page, and a digital strategy. And then we would also help them with the actual going live. And because we've now done this over 400 times, like in the past, I'd never done this before ever. And now, you know, I feel like I know exactly how to use Restream, OBS, all these different softwares that I had no idea about a couple of months ago. So it would be a lot of working with the artists, like you guys were saying, doing lots of test runs, making sure that they're ready, and then on the actual day, trying to maximize engagement and looking at how we can share the stream so that as many people as possible see it and therefore donate. So this was a festival we did in Scotland called Fly Open Air, and they've been going for a few years. And together we put together a lineup. They had a lot of press around this, and the engagement was really high. And then, yeah, with these guys, they actually used a software called Restream, which allows you to go to several different platforms. So they went to Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and they actually went onto Mixcloud as well. So it meant there was hundreds of people viewing it from across different platforms. And say if someone would prefer to see your event on YouTube, or they might prefer to see it on Twitch. So you had that option. And then across that whole day, we had over 140,000 views across the day. And to be honest, every single week, the main slots are on Saturday, and we'll be getting from 100 to 200,000 people engaging with it. And we've now had over 3 million people actually interact with the campaign. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and I've definitely learned a lot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I don't know how to do that. Yeah, I've definitely learned so much about where this is going.
Button at the top of your screen where it says stop sharing.
Let's have a look. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
So yeah, so I've learned a hell of a lot about new tech, how to actually get these people going online, and how you create an online event. And in theory, I've sort of been doing online events a couple of times a week, and it's quite oversaturated now. But I think if you really know who your audience is and what they like, then it's quite simple, and it's just not being scared about the tech. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Thanks, Hannah. That was really interesting. I think I learned a lot about you drawing on the experience of the team that you put together, and getting people who are passionate to volunteer some time and get them involved, especially if it's a charity campaign, you're raising money. Do you have a top tip for us?
I've got so many. I don't know what the top one is. The top one is maybe adapt and constantly change and be ready to the plan that you've got in mind for your event. It won't be what happens. It will change, but you just got to go with that. And also, don't be afraid to try out new tech that, you know, someone might tell you about a new platform or software. Just download it and have a play around with it, because it might be a lot easier than you think.
I think it's a credible achievement, and I absolutely love the way that you've managed to engage such a large online audience in such a short time. It's really inspiring and gives me some hope. I'm, you know, doing the same thing, doing a little digital festival in the next couple of weeks, and we haven't really got a clue in terms of how many people we can reach. So that's given me a lot to learn from as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jo.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Alistair now. Last but not least, Alistair, looking forward to hearing from you about the Original Theatre Company.
Hi everyone, it's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me, Jo and Vicky and all the team. So I run a theatre company, a touring theatre company. We've played in Essex, places like the Southend Palace, the Basildon Towngate, but we perform all over the UK, all over the world sometimes. And at the point of lockdown, we had two shows that were running. One was The Croft, a new play by Ali Millis, that was in Croydon at the Fairfield Halls. And the other was Alan Bennett's The Habit of Art, which starred Matthew Kelly. It was going on a big tour, then going to New York. And then obviously we closed, we lost a fortune, and we didn't really know what to do next. I am not an expert on anything digital. Before this, I had never done anything beyond have a website, and to be honest, somebody else managed the website. I, like the rest of the panelists, really created work in physical spaces. Now we don't have physical spaces, and I decided right at the beginning of the lockdown, so this was March 16th, Boris said he advised people not to go to the theatre's closed. And that evening I called up a filmmaker who had filmed trailers for us, and he came and over the next 48 hours filmed both shows. This was before we got any of the agreements in place with the artists. I wouldn't advise that, but it was a necessity, and everyone was incredibly generous, both all the agents. Alan Bennett's agent in LA, his screen agent, had to give off his, sign off on it. We filmed both shows, we did these agreements, we edited them, we built a website, we launched it the week later with a new platform. And I think if I can share my screen, I can show you that. Let's see if this works. Here it goes. So I'm just going to skip over from one website to another website. Okay, so this is the website that we built. It's called Original Theatre Online. That's a picture of Matthew Kelly in The Habit of Art. And we tried to sell it. Now, we came out sort of before the National Theatre Live and all these other wonderful companies that started streaming their work and wonderfully and generously doing it for free. We needed to charge because we needed to pay for doing it. It cost £30,000 to do this, and we were trying to pay people as well. And it was £2.50, it was a minimum donation, and we encouraged people to do more. You can see there's a donate button up here. And what we encountered was huge resistance because as long as all this free content, wonderful free content came out, we were offering something that frankly people couldn't tell the difference between the shows created and filmed before lockdown and ours. They look very similar. Why would you pay £2.50? So anyway, so this was up and running, and we'd performed, staged this, about 5,000 people had bought it, and we'd just about covered our costs. I can go into all sorts of the big plus points in terms of mailing list and audience sort of data that we learned through this, and also how to use online box office. But I want to skip over and tell you a little bit about what we did next, because this was about mid-April time. The horizon's really bleak, still is for theatres, in fact, anyone doing anything in the arts, frankly. And all our autumn shows were cancelled. We had no income. We didn't, unfortunately, get the Arts Council emergency funding. So we were in a really bad place. So what did we do? I got a government loan and invested it in this crazy project here. This is Birdsong. This was a show that we did in between 2013 and 2018. This is me when I looked younger and was the free model when nobody else would do it. And over between 2013 and 2018, it toured all around the UK. We managed to get 250,000 people watching it. And it was, for us, a success. Rachel, the adapter, who's now one of our associates, Rachel Wagstaff, she called me up and said, would you consider doing this and doing it as like a Zoom reading? And I thought, it's a bit, Zoom's really difficult. It's not great. It's quite hard to find a material that works on Zoom in terms of play. We've probably all done, many of you have done Zoom readings and maybe seen some sort of live Zoom event. So I was skeptical. There were other safer products that we could maybe explore. But then a few weeks later, we thought, well, it's a big title. We need to stand out from the crowd. I've no idea how to do this. And maybe let's just do it. And we are right in the middle of this. So this is releasing on the 1st of July. So I can't speak to you sort of in hindsight. I can speak to you about sort of what we're doing in the here and now and try and do this in about 3 minutes. So what we did, originally the idea was all the actors, we put them in costume and we do it on Zoom, and we probably wouldn't be able to live stream it, but we would be able to edit it together using the different Zoom, from single takes shots of the actors to the multi-screen shots, 3-4 cameras. And then we'd add some sound, and it would sort of be, tricky, ambitious, but doable. And then we met internet connections, and then we met Zoom bandwidth issues. And then we basically realized it wasn't really going to be very good, and that it's quite a big title. And Sebastian Folks is involved. He's doing the narration, and it was really, really going badly. So then what we came out with, and I've sort of written a diary about this because it's I think interesting because we're learning as we go, and I thought I should try and record it. So you can read this. It's quite ridiculous in many ways. And if we just go right sort of down to the beginning, around, where was it? Here we go, around day 8, ideal filming setup. If you look at these 2 bits here, and this picture, you can basically see what we had to do. So we shipped iPhones to actors. We've shipped green screens to actors, microphones to actors all over the UK, with the postal service being disastrous. And period costumes, which we had to try and find. And then we use Zoom as the interface on which people would communicate, but then they would record it locally on their iPhones with lighting systems that we sent them. And we would then get the actors to individually upload takes of themselves behind a green screen, which the editor would then composite together to then make it appear like they were all in sync with backgrounds which a virtual designer had uploaded. And we tried to shoot this 90-minute feature film effectively in 2 weeks. And now we have 2 weeks to edit the whole thing. And I think what's interesting about it, whether we'll succeed or not. So I think if we go up here, you can sort of see, let's have a look at, there's Liam, who is behind with a green screen, but this is with a bit of grading. And it sort of looks like he's there in that location slightly. And what you get is this, basically a new form. We've been trying to say, what have we got that we've made here? And I think what we've got is sort of like a radio play with images. It's about as close as we've got, this really intimate way of telling a story, which has been told in many different formats, but this is a first of a kind, I suppose. And I don't think I've seen anything like this out there yet. We still don't really know what it's going to look like, or what it's going to sound like. We will in about a week's time when it launches. So it's been a huge process, a journey of discovery, but if it works, and I think there's something in it, whether it works for birdsong, I mean, we can see, I don't know, hopefully it will. But I don't think anybody sort of in April was thinking you could do a period show and use the sort of what we had, do First World War battle scenes, passionate lovemaking scenes, everything that's in birdsong, and do that online. And maybe we might have shown a way that you can, or you certainly can do more than you think you could do. And for somebody who had no idea about online tech a few months ago, the hope is that not only will we come out of this, maybe generate a little bit of work, certainly make some work for other creatives who are really, and freelancers who are really suffering at the moment. We're raising money for the Royal British Legion, and I hope we're going to mark July the 1st, which was the first day of the Somme, terrible day for British history in general, I think, and sort of do something that marks that, but also offer a story that's about resilience, about the human spirit, and about the power of love. And who knows how it will go? Who knows? We've got to, we've got to trying to test it, but it's quite difficult to test when we think that maybe 1,000 to 5,000 people might try and all buy it at once. We don't know how to test for that. We don't know an awful lot, but we're going to go for it. We're going to try. On the first day that we launched, I'm going to shut up very quickly, this one. So Habit of Art went out and we were using Vimeo Plus. Don't use Vimeo Plus. That's my top tip, everyone. Don't use it because they charge you a fortune in commission fees, much more, and you can't get hold of them. So when on the night that you launch, you've got 1,000 people trying to buy it, you go over a certain tax threshold, they'll stop the payment system, and you can't get hold of Vimeo to find out what's happening. So instead, what you get is everyone emailing you from all over the world, being really angry. People get really angry because they don't think there's a real person answering you, but actually it was coming through to me, and I'm trying to fend off all these emails and can't get hold of Vimeo, and we lost a fortune, and everyone thought it was a terrible launch, and it was. But the reason was because Vimeo had a tax threshold, and we didn't know that because it's in the fine print, and we didn't have time to properly scan it through, I suppose, or we just didn't understand. So that was a disaster. But I don't know how we could have tested that without getting a lot of people to buy it. And obviously we couldn't do that. So anyway, so that's sort of what not to do, maybe what to try, or don't try it. Let me try it and sort of make all the mistakes, and then you can all pick it up and do a lot better. Thank you all very much for having me. And it's been amazing to be a part of this event. I'm going to stop sharing that and hand back to you, Joe.
Great, thank you so much. I think I just want to say what incredible speed and response that you guys had in terms of finding out about lockdown and deciding to reposition yourself straight away, and just learning a lot about how we need to be able to look at how we can pivot our work, try and be flexible, and it's okay to admit that we're testing, we're piloting, we're developing. We haven't done this before. We are having to try new technologies. Things won't work. It's okay that they might go wrong, and you know, just get back up and get back out there, I guess, is what I got from your talk, Alistair. So thank you so much. And I'm going to totally tune in and on July 1st. That looks incredible. I'm really excited to see your final piece of work. Okay, so we've had all our lightning talks now from our excellent speakers, and we've got some questions in the side box, but please, any questions you have on any subject around putting events online, please get those questions into the chat box. And just a reminder that whilst we're discussing the questions, if you've got something you want to add, use the raise your hand function, and then hopefully I'll be able to see you raise your hand and ask you to unmute and join the discussion on the call as well. But I just wanted to get started with a question that I know has been quite key to quite a few people I've spoken to, and maybe a little bit more sort of directed at people who are working with schools and young people and vulnerable adults potentially. But that is how we look at safeguarding our online events, especially with programs of workshops, group activities, and how we look at moderating those kind of activities. So I don't know if any of the speakers want to sort of feed in their feedback about how they've looked at safeguarding. Frazer, maybe?
Yeah, happy to chime in here. It's really, really, really important. Can't be like understated how important it is. If different organizations are kind of coming to different policies at the moment, but a lot of it really is around you know, when safeguarding, say maybe in a school, might be that you need to make sure that you're not alone with a child, something like that. So you can kind of take that across to a digital space as well. So that might be something like you shouldn't do one-to-one sessions without someone else being there. So for example, that's another reason to have 2 members of staff in the call at any one time. And that way you can make sure that you've got that second member of staff there for any particular reason. And then it also might be things like, you know, try not to record your sessions unless you have written permission. And also taking screenshots, etc. Those things are out of bounds again, unless you've got the permission from the adult in relation to that. So that's our policy. Some schools we've worked with, as I said, only use certain softwares because that's what their safeguarding policy states. So some schools maybe only use Teams. And again, as an organization, we need to adapt. So our Signals is safeguarding policy isn't restricted to a single software. We need to be able to adapt to work with different people depending on what their safeguarding policies are.
Great. Does any of our other speakers have anything they want to add into that? Yeah, Francis? Oh,
Yeah, just to say, yes, all the things that Fraser was saying are important for you. Thinking about schools. What we're going to be doing in Essex is working with individual children at home, but in, you know, making up their own groups. And my experience of doing that at the moment is very much on the teaching front. And of course, these are people I wouldn't take on anybody new at the moment, whose parents I didn't know and wasn't able to specifically ask about it. But I work with quite a lot of autistic children, so on, in this way. And I've got to be very, very careful that at every single session, I make sure that the parents are aware or are there in the room with them. So that, you know, so that they don't do anything untoward, because sometimes that happens. They go on their phone and they broadcast what you're doing, things like that. I mean, you know, you've got to really get the parents on board. And actually, I found that very useful, because unlike when they come to my house for their lessons and the parent sits on the phone in the room, I can actually see them all the time, because they've got to sit there and they've got to get more engaged, and that can be quite useful, actually.
great, thank you so much. I'm going to hop over to the questions we got in the chat box, and I've just scrolled back up to the beginning of the questions that came in. One of the first ones was, is it possible to test if you're doing public broadcasting, so streaming live, I think, on Facebook? So I don't know if Hannah, you want to say about that. I know from my own experience of doing live streams on Facebook, it can be quite, especially if you're getting multiple people to stream from different homes or different places, it can be a little bit complicated.
You can definitely, with Facebook on your own personal profile, how we've been doing it is that every person that does a stream has to test it onto their personal one. And if they put only you, then you can do it privately so no one else sees it. But you can also do this where some of the events that we've done, I'm using OBS and then running Zoom into OBS. So maybe I've got a group of 4 people, and then that is going onto Facebook, and I can practice that whole thing on my personal page and then watch it back to see if it looks good. Or you can actually do it so that you can send it to specific people. So you can show maybe your clients, or you can show other people that are interacting with it. So yeah, there is.
So there is, and to look into OBS is your advice there?
Yeah, I'd say if you're just starting and if you haven't done it before, OBS is a free software, and you can put Zoom into it. You can put lots of graphics. It lets you make different scenes. So it's really interactive and it's super simple. And there's loads of tutorials on YouTube. And I'd say practice with Zoom for a little bit until you're comfortable. And then maybe if you want to do more intricate things, there's lots of other software, but most of them you have to pay for, and they're quite expensive. So yeah, OBS. I can put a link in the chat.
Please do, that's a great tip, thank you. I'm just gonna scroll down these questions here. Sorry, 1 second. So does anyone have any, so this is, sorry, from, I realised I haven't been given the question names, I apologise. And please do let me know, use the raise a hand function at the bottom of the chat if you want to join in the discussion. So this is from Kristen Casey to everyone. Does anyone have any recommendations on how to perform together in time via Zoom? And then Kristen says, safeguarding, there are a lot of policies available to share online. We can't have a video at this moment, but this will change with a minimum of 5 students. So just first question was, does anyone have any recommendations on how to perform together in time on Zoom? Does any of our speakers want to say anything about that? Yeah, Francis, if you've got any feedback from doing the choir, perhaps?
Yeah, yes. Well, you can't, because there's latency involved, which means that, you know, people are always going to be. I mean, I actually have worked out, if you do a piece of music at a certain speed, you can be, if you're the conductor, you can be a quaver ahead of everybody else, but it does your head in. But they can't hear each other. Only you could hear them. You know, they would be able to. But you can't. But what we have done when we're doing dialogue and things, I mean, again, we do. More or less what Alistair was talking about. So everybody records themselves at home doing it, but we rehearse and perform, as it were, the dialogue together. And then they send me the recordings, which I then put together. We have a way of starting them at the same time. And then we perform live. So you've maybe got one person or two people actually live and the rest are faking it.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
And it's funny because actually we realize that people don't necessarily twig that it is, because you do see a lot of kind of on video, you know, you see a lot of kind of people being behind, so they're used to the fact that you're not exactly lip synced. So
yeah.
actually, you know, actually you can kind of fake it, but you can't actually do it unless somebody else has found a way so far.
Alistair, please.
So yeah, I completely agree there. But we were slightly inspired. You might have seen it. It was a separate piece of Tom Stoppard play that Sam Yates directed. I think this might have been end of April time. And it looked, to all extents and purposes, that it was all done on Zoom. It had David Morrissey was one of the actors in it. And so it was reasonably high profile, a short 30-minute piece. But and I was watching it and going, how are they doing that live? How are they doing that? Because there was no lag. It felt like it was very smooth and there was no delay. But the setup looked like Zoom. They were using virtual backgrounds, or so it seemed. But it transpires that they were the video design. There was a big production designer, and that designer had in fact built a platform to make it look like it was Zoom. And then we're running to the extreme end of my limited technical knowledge here, but they live mixed it. So the actors were recording themselves. Those videos were being sent away, live mixed, and then put back in all live by effectively a stage manager, who then basically built it to look like it was Zoom, when in fact it wasn't. It was much, much more complicated. But you were able to get live lag-free interaction going on that way. And we were looking at doing that for this version of Birdsong, but the cost was slightly prohibitive. So we went with our makeshift way of doing it. So I think there is a way, but it's slightly tricky, particularly if you've got more than 4 people.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to go back into, I'm just going to try and go to gallery view. I can't see any hands up from people on the call, but please do use a function if you've got something you think might be worth adding and sharing with the group. So I'm going to go on to the next question, which is from Neil, who says, keen to hear how you can create a sense of place and space through digital events, i.e. making your audience feel like they're not just watching, but actually attending. Homepages that welcome people, introduction videos and slides, etc. So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that. Yes, Hannah.
Hi. Let me. Am I unmuted? Yeah, there we go. So this is one of the things that we've sort of tried to tackle over the last couple of weeks, is how do we actually create a community when people are watching? And I think it's, if you're having someone present or do a workshop or do a performance, having them with the chat open so they can actually call out people individually makes it all a bit more real. Also having someone there in the comments that's on it and talking to people. But then you can also do quite creative things, like, for example, we did an event with 2 guys that did a 5-hour stream, and they're musicians. And while they performed, we had open a Zoom call that had 200 people on, and they actually projected that onto a wall opposite them. So they could see you dancing and you could see them as well. So you really did feel like you're in this space together. I think there's lots of ways, but I think it's just trial and error and trying different things, and just all the little nuances and things that you realize when you watch your stream that you like, remembering that and doing that for yourself. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on this question? I think it's a really good one. Yes, Frazer.
Yeah, I'll echo maybe what some of Hannah was saying earlier on as well. So you might see a lot of live streams, like we did at the beginning, we had that 5-minute buffer. So some live streams will have like a countdown page at the start, and that kind of builds a little bit of anticipation. If you kind of get comfortable or confident using OBS, you can do things like overlaying graphics. A good friend of mine, Lula, who's doing online gigs, and she's working with visual artists. So you've got musicians who are playing, but then other people kind of doing amazing visuals as well. So as a kind of a digital platform, there's a really opportunity to kind of do things with visuals as well. I mean, kind of there's obviously the sort of set dressing behind you whilst you're on the call, but there's also, well, what else could you be doing? Could you work with a visual artist to do something even more exciting as well?
Can I also interject on that as well? I've just thought of another example. We did an event a few weeks ago, and the guy that was doing it, he was a DJ, but he was doing an 11-hour set, and he had a green screen behind him, and we had people call into Skype and then be put on the green screen behind him that was then going out. So you could call up and you and your mates dancing in your living room, and then the next thing you're being broadcast to 2,000 people.
It's great.
And I think there's loads of playful stuff like that. When we start exploring, there's lots.
I think also in terms of if you're looking at more classroom or workshop type activities, I know that Microsoft Teams, some of the paid functionality, but also especially with Zoom, you've got the breakout rooms that you can add on to your call. And I know in terms of doing those kind of workshopy or more kind of conference like events, having a breakout room so you can then break your audience into smaller groups to go away and have a kind of more intense discussion around a subject, and having maybe again needing more than one person to host a call then, because it's good to have hosts in those breakout rooms, means that you start off with speakers and maybe a really big subject with a big room of people, and then you can go off and have again that kind of more sense of one-to-one contact and networking that you might get. So if we're thinking kind of more about educational events and things like that, that's another good way that I know definitely through the events and activities and workshops that I've been delivering online has been really successful as well. So less of a creative one, more of maybe a kind of academic one as well. Okay, does anyone else have anything else that they want to feed into that sort of place and space, creating community online? I've got Andy Southend Tech. Yep.
Yeah, so we've been running the Essex DMETs, and it's been quite hard to create a community because most of the girls haven't met each other before we met online. So some of the things which we're doing, and we've had maybe more tech problems than usual because the kids have had maybe the second or third computer in the house. So it's been a slower computer, but also we're using Jitsi, which is worse than Zoom. So you know, it takes twice as much CPU. So it's a free system and it gets a little bit overloaded. But what we've been doing is we've been using side channels. So we're used to the chat, but what people have been doing is they'll use the chat, but we'll also then maybe link out to YouTube. And some of the girls have been making videos, and we'll say, right, go and watch that video for 30 seconds. We're doing this glove competition, which has 10-minute lessons. So rather than me trying to stream it and you'll watch it from my screen share, which doesn't really work as well as you just watching it, I'll say, and it's quite scary, I'll put the link in the chat and say, go and watch that, turn off your videos to save bandwidth and CPU, watch it, and then I'll watch it, and 10 minutes later we'll come back, and then after about 10.5 minutes they'll start putting into chat, I've watched it, and after 11 minutes I'll say, has everyone watched it? And they'll have watched it. And the other thing which we'll do is people actually say, oh, I've made a project, and they'll hold up and go, oh, look, this is a thing which I've done, and you know, if I press this button it does this, that and the other, and then you know, that's totally random. They'll go, oh, I've made this week, and they've shown it, and they've really loved that. And because we're doing STEAM and we're not just technology and computers, people have then also been showing their piano, and they've been playing trumpet. So we've been getting them to do the other things. And now we're doing this glove competition. It's got music. So the tech part is, it's got a microbit on a glove, and you move it up and down and it changes notes. So what they're going to do is they're going to do the 3-chord trick where you can play loads of pop music to 3 chords with 3 gestures. And they're going to try, they're either going to do it live, or they're going to do one of those clever things where in different boxes, they're playing the piano, and in a different box, they're doing that. So, I mean, hopefully at work we'll have something. Obviously we're not professional, and some of them are like 11, 12 trying to do these advanced.
It's great. I think it's all about experimenting at this point. We're all learning, and it is definitely a new thing. I also noticed that there was a Neil who had a hand up. Neil, did you still want to join the call? Join the discussion there? Neil Perrott?
No, that was just me saying thanks. It was a thumbs up.
Okay,
So it was just thanks for your responses.
Great, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question.
I just had
sorry, go on, Vicky.
Sorry, it's Kristen. I had my
Oh,
hand
sorry, Kristen. I missed you. I'm trying to flip between two screens. Apologies.
No,
Please do.
That's the nature of these online sessions, isn't it? Trying to work it as it goes along. I just had a couple points about engagement and how to ensure that. Number one, I think the parents knowing about the event is really important. So we do things like cover song competitions, and we were supposed to do a big summer production. We're looking at Christmas not being a potential either for large audiences, unfortunately. So we're ensuring that we're sending our events to the parents so they encourage their young people to participate, because at the moment, I think young people finding it very, very, very difficult and discouraging to work to a computer screen. And getting the parents engaged to celebrate their child and their child's success in creativity has been quite impactful for us so far. We've also, I heard a model the other day about a group of students who were less confident to perform in front of an audience, and knowing that they were going to be recorded and then played in front of a group of people. So what the teacher did was put emojis over their face, and to make it interactive, they had to try to guess who the performer was. And I really liked how soft and kind of warm and interactive and supportive that could be. So I'm going to look at that one as well. We do a lot of social media sharing of the success that's been sent to us or work that we do. So we have 3 active Twitter accounts that share the practice. And another one that I came across is going to be whole class music tuition. It used to be called First Access or Play It or whatever, but they're looking at discussing the lesson with the teacher in advance, delivering to the class via a video, and then feeding back, the teacher feeding back at the end of it. And I really like that model, because what you tend to see as a teacher, if you go in and deliver, it's often used as PPA time. And if the teacher then has to sit in with that class, monitor what's happening musically, they're going to not only learn what their young people can and may not yet be able to do, but they also get upskilling from that person who recorded the video based on the needs of their pupils. So that's one thing that Essex Music Hub are looking at, and I'm really excited about. So just a couple of ideas.
Thank you. That was really, really good feedback. Does anyone else want to add anything before we move on to the next question? Just speak up if you do, because I'm not sure if I'm seeing all the hands when they go up. Okay, I'm taking that as a silent no. We'll move on to the next question. So we've got from Chris, I think, to everyone: to support the making of events, apart from the donate button on Facebook, what other ways are there to generate income to fund an event online? Anyone got onto? Yes.
Yes. There's quite a few ways. We've been helping out a campaign called No Events, No Tents, which is trying to raise money to pay for tents in Calais. So I've, as well as doing Live for Love stuff, I've just been sort of giving them some tips as to what we've done that helped. They're having everyone buy a ticket they're doing it all on Zoom, and every person is buying a £7 ticket that's a donation, and then they get access to the Zoom link. So they've raised, I think it's £650 so far just from doing that. And then what they're going to do is at the end of the night, the last people to perform, they're going to stream live onto YouTube, Twitch and Facebook, and basically do the same thing that we've been doing, whereby you are sharing the GoFundMe link or the Kickstarter, whatever your donation link is, in the description, but then also having someone in the comments trying to get a bit of momentum with people donating. But a few things that really help is you can usually, on most platforms, pin a comment. So you can write something, pin it to the top, and people see that instantly so that they know they can click on that donation link. There's also, if you start calling out people that have donated, you'll soon find that more and more people start donating as well, and you need to get a bit of a ripple going with it. And then as soon as, 4 or 5 people donate, you'll find a lot more people are wanting to donate as well, because they want to be shown to be there and be active. So I think those 2 things, definitely having an event page, and then making people buy tickets to it, and then also looking at how do you get a bigger reach? How do you reach more people and potentially have more donations?
In terms of generating income, Alistair, have you got any thoughts, and/or do you want to tell us a little bit about the online box office that you've done?
Yes, so to talk about Birdsong, so we moved from the Vimeo Plus, which I think somebody commented that the Vimeo free is very good. Yeah, and I don't make any disparagements about that. I was commenting on the Video Plus, which is basically where you stream and their charges that they put onto us. So we moved from Vimeo Plus to Eventbrite, where the charges are lesser. The system isn't quite as smooth in some ways, but basically people can buy a ticket. And what we've done is we did an early bird ticketing price. So we started at £10 for people who booked it in the first week. It's now gone up to £12.50, but we've then produced an online program, just like our normal theatre program. So you can get that for a premium ticket at £15. And then we've been a bit creative and sort of used some of the funding ideas that people have had. So we've got Sebastian Folks signing books, some of the actors who are sort of well known off the television signing scripts, as well as crediting in the credits that will come up. So just finding extra ways that people can support. On top of that, we also found with the 2 shows, the productions, that some people I think wanted to give and be philanthropic. And so we added a donate option for people to kind of support the company and the actors involved. And we found that when we did that, a lot of people then did that instead of buying the shows, and we would send them a private link to the shows. Moving forward though, still Eventbrite are taking, I think it's around 20%. So it's still quite a large chunk of the commission. So we hope that we're going to do more of these. So we're building our own brand new site. I mean, it'll be a bit like the iPlayer, but for a theatre company. And within that, we then are going to host everything, do it all. We've got our own box office system built in. And the charges then, the commission goes down to the interchange fees, which are 2 or 3% maximum. So to go from 20% down to 2 or 3%, it pays for itself quite quickly. And that in turn will allow us to host other people's work who are kind of coming into this and want to sort of put on their shows but don't know how. So we kind of think this might be a source of income moving forward, and also save a lot of people money in the process, because even if we charged a 7 or 8% commission, say, that would still be substantially cheaper than the commission offered. So yeah, there's just a few thoughts of what we're finding and sort of learning as we're moving forwards. Okay.
I just wanted to add as well, in terms of more commercial events, I know that there's some commercial digital festivals that have been happening online. I was talking to a client that's been running a beauty blog digital festival, and they've actually sold sponsorship for the digital festival. So they've sold advertising on the website and on the landing pages for the different events with event sponsors. So I know it's a really tough climate, and I know that lots of businesses are not looking to spend money on marketing, but you might be surprised there might still be businesses looking to support the local community or get involved or get what they're doing, their brand out there. So maybe sponsorship is something we should still be looking into as well. Does anyone else have anything else to add on generating income for events? Any of the participants? Yes, Kristin.
Yeah, sorry.
No, please.
I've contacted the local charity organization that's I'm volunteering for the COVID response, but through that relationship and that network, and I cannot say how important networks are, because it's not what you know, it's who you know and what they know. But through that network, I've been able to get them to signpost me to funding pots for, I'm just a little bit worried about the return curriculum. So I'm putting together movement therapy, drama therapy, and music therapy bids to the local council. And I'm going to be doing something similar in one of our schools is in a different town. So we're going to do some trial bids for a 10-week program of well-being. And I think that will just allow us to not burden the teachers and just give it to the outside providers, and actually we will get CPD from that. But it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what councils are trying to do in terms of well-being for different brackets, young, old, and those who are more vulnerable.
Yeah, and actually on that note, about a week ago, as one of the events for Essex 2020, we did a session on fundraising, and there was a lot of chat about grants fundraising, especially in the Essex region and area. And I know that that was a live stream, so that's been fully recorded and it's available. I know it's available on the Always Possible website and the Always Possible Facebook page. I believe it's also probably available on the Essex 2020 Facebook, Twitter page. I'm sure I can find a link to it and we'll put it in the chat box. So if you're interested in more advice about grants fundraising during the current climate, we'll put that link in the box as well. I'm just going to flick between my screens and check if there's any other hands up for joining the call conversation about income.
I just wanted to add something quickly to that.
Yes, please. Thank you.
There's a lot of musicians at the moment are using PayPal as a way of taking donations from their audience, because it can follow them as they kind of gig in different virtual spaces. So different musicians are live streaming on different people's Facebook pages or YouTube streams, what have you. And so rather than having to go through the host's own fundraising mechanism, they can just paste their own PayPal link. So PayPal, I've got a paypal.me/your name. It's quite easy to set up. Obviously, you have to deal with the charges that PayPal has, but it allows it kind of, if you're an artist and you're looking to receive donations, it can follow you as you go across different platforms. It's quite easy to set up, so worth looking at.
Great, thank you. I've just realised my screen's gone. I'm having an internet problem at the moment. It's gone very slow for a minute there for me. I'm going to move on to the next question, if that's all right with everyone. And I'm going to so this is from Anna that says, has anyone got recommendations for platforms to host public events to reach out to new participants? I was considering Eventbrite. Any thoughts? I'm looking to host online fitness and dance classes, but maybe we can make that a larger question on how to outreach, engagement and developing audiences online, perhaps. If anyone's got anything they want to add to that. Yes, Hannah.
Yeah, so with sort of engagement and getting the most people actually on your stream, because there is so much going on online. Like if you just have a look on Explore on Facebook, there is so many virtual events happening right now. So it's really important to do all the pre-planning and really set up exactly what you've got going on, what is your programming, what are you offering to someone, and be really clear so that people don't have to come back to it and they just know, right, that's in the calendar, that's what I'm doing on that date. Because if you don't, it'll just get lost. And then in terms of the actual going live on the actual day, if you want it to be public and it's going to whoever, you're totally open. We found that, to be honest, Facebook is really good for sharing stuff, and you can do this thing called cross-posting on Facebook, which is really handy. Say if you're a musician and you want to do a live concert on Facebook, but you've also got maybe a coffee shop, your local coffee shop that you know has 5,000 likes on Facebook, but has nothing going on. And you can ask them to cross-post it. So it means that the content will go to their channel as well as yours. So you instantly have much wider reach. So what a stream that might only get 50 or 80 viewers can potentially get a couple of hundred. So that's really great. What you will notice is that on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram is the copyright stuff. So if you're doing anything that plays music, even if you're just doing a dance class, Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and Instagram will all pick up on that copyright. With Facebook, it's after 40 to 50 minutes. I'm not sure what it is on the other platforms, but I can check. And that'll mean that you'll either get cut off completely and you'll have to re-upload, or if you're doing pre-recorded, that you'll be paused and you'll have to resume. So there's definitely ways around it, and different platforms that, like Mixcloud, for example, if you're just doing music, is really good because you don't have to pay for copyright. It's in there with the costs. So I think just be careful of these little things that mean that your video might just be cut off, because you don't want to tell everyone you're doing 2 hours and then actually after 40 minutes the stream goes off and you lose all your viewers. So it's being aware of these little things on each platform.
Great, thank you, Hannah. And I just want to go back to the original question. I know you mentioned Eventbrite. If you're making you can choose to make your event public or private with the link on Eventbrite. And if you do make it public, and I believe you can add in your hashtags and everything else, then it will get seen by a really good wide amount of audience reach in the area when people are just exploring the Eventbrite page themselves. So I do think Eventbrite is a great starting platform for anyone who's looking to do online registration, booking tickets for events and things like that as well. So it is another good way to build audiences, as well as using Facebook and all the different streams and the Twitch and everything else that we've got available to us now as well. Before I move on, did anyone else have anything they wanted to say on developing audiences? I'm just going to flip between my screens again if I can. Double check. No, I'm going to take that as I can't hear you, so we're going to move on. There's a question from Billy, which is, has anyone live streamed a show that is taking place physically? For example, we are exploring inviting local amateur acts and societies into the theatre and stage, I guess when you reopen, to form a short 10 to 15 people piece. So I guess the question is maybe about, is anyone thinking now about, now that we might start slowly going into spaces again in a socially distanced way, is anyone considering trying to work in a physical social distance way to produce work that's then shared online? Has anyone got any thoughts on that? Yes, Hannah? And then I'm going to go to Jules after Hannah.
So we did one with, there's a music venue called the Magic Garden, which is a pub in Battersea, and they're sort of renowned for their programming. And they did sort of what you're talking about, but it was much longer than 10-15 minutes. They had people doing half an hour to an hour.
10 to 15 people that they're looking at working with. That was not the minutes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So they had, I think they had about 4 or 5 people in the pub, but it was very difficult for them to actually keep social distancing and make it work. But it did work. I guess if you plan it quite strategically and know when everyone's coming on and that these are the rules, and if you set out your boundaries first. Yeah,
definitely. Jules, you put your hand up on that one. Did you want to come on? Oh, I just need to unmute your mic.
Myself.
Yeah,
that's
got
right.
you.
Okay, great. Yeah, hi everyone. I did it on a very much smaller scale actually. I think I mentioned that I've only just moved to the area, and so a week before lockdown, and then got locked down. So hi everyone, it's really nice to meet my tribe in this part of the world. But previously I lived in Ludlow, and before all this happened, I did a performance in an outside performance actually that had to be socially distanced because it was with a group of very, very autistic young people who didn't want to be in each other's space. So it was kind of a precursor really. So they were all sort of socially distanced with their carer in on an allotment, and then I did the performance on the allotment, and then that got filmed and sent out to other people as well. I don't know whether that's what you meant though, because you're talking about more people being involved, aren't you, in the performance?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to, I can't see the question now. Who was it that gave that question? Do you want to come on and just tell us a bit more about your project? Oh, Billy, was it? Like, is Billy there? Have we lost Billy?
I'm happy to add something.
Oh, please do. Yeah, do you want to add something? And then Billy wants to talk. Billy can join us.
Yeah, please do. So I'm working with a string quartet at the moment to kind of get them prepped for a live stream. And one of the most important things really is sound. If you're going to be, I've seen a couple of things from theatres at the moment where they've kind of put a microphone in the middle of the audience, and it just doesn't feel the same, especially when there's no people in the room. The acoustics of that space are completely different. So if you can try and either like a lavalier microphone for the performers, or like depending on the context of the situation, it might be, understand the importance of sound and good sound coming across on a live stream. So that might be individually miking the people, or it might be just close miking the ensemble in different ways. But sometimes just using the inbuilt microphone on your phone isn't enough, and you might need to add extra microphones to kind of make it feel like you're actually in the room rather than in a very big empty room.
Great. Oh yes, Alistair, please.
Just on the sound, that's a good point Fraser makes. So what we did, I've got it here. This is what's called a Rode mic. It's £50, and all our actors, we sent this out. It comes with one of these, which we didn't need. That's a windsock. But basically that then, we bought an adapter that goes into any iPhone, because we used iPhones, but it's also goes straight into the bottom and works. And the quality on this is amazing. It's £50 and it's professional quality sound. So I'd really recommend it. Rode, R-O-D-E, Rode mic.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to talk about just picking up on that idea of returning to some sort of physical work, even if we're looking then to put it online as well. I will try at the end of the call to add it to the chat so that it goes into resource sheet. I'm having a problem with my internet right now, so I don't want to upload anything and then end up going very slow. But there's the Events Safety Alliance have published a document about producing events and venues. So when it starts to look like we can slowly return to producing some kind of activities, even in small groups, it's like a 5-6 page document which gives some really good advice from sort of international learning on how to bring people back into spaces. So I'll add that PDF to the collection that goes out on the resource sheet as well. I'm going to move on to the next question. What are the potential technological pitfalls of live streaming for an event?
How long have you got?
Anyone want to pick up on that?
Go on, I'll pick
Tell
up
us
on
what's
it.
gone wrong with you. Have you had any like disasters or anything that's gone wrong, Hannah?
There's been so many things that have gone wrong. Just an insane amount. Like you guys are saying, the sound and people not testing the sound, and also them not actually doing a test where they watch the video back. So they could be putting something out that actually sounds awful. So yeah, that's a big one. Get yourself an Ethernet cable so that you're going directly into the internet. I couldn't find mine before, but it's super helpful. What other things? And then again, like these platforms behaving in ways that you don't really anticipate. Check how long that you can go live for. You know, like you were saying about Vimeo, Alistair, and not knowing that. There's so many things like that. So before you start using a piece of software, just have a little research on Google, you know, what's been the things that have gone wrong with this software, so that you're aware and you're ready for them. Yeah, it's just trial and error, really.
Definitely. Does anyone else want to pick up on that? Jules, I can see you put your hand up there.
Yeah, can I just say it's one thing that's occurred to me over the last couple of weeks is that I thought I'd be able to do this on my own after working in theatres and all that for years and years and having all those people around me to help, and you can't. That assistant that one of the speakers said about is absolutely crucial, and especially when you're doing things technically, I think. So yeah, my top tip would be to look at the sound, but also make sure you've got an assistant with you. That's it.
Yeah,
really.
I definitely agree. And all the different types of online calls and activities I've been doing, having an assistant has been, or tag teaming, having a couple of people on the call is very important. Neil, I can see you putting up your hand there.
Can I just ask a sort of follow-on question on stuff that can go wrong? How forgiving are you finding audiences? I mean, I know that Alistair said that it was sort of people got very cross about the Vimeo Plus issue, but I think there's this sort of we're at this stage where on the one hand everyone's like, we're in lockdown, this is all new, everyone's trying different things, and then on the other hand people are like, but we're now kind of expecting it to be good, and if you're going to go out with something, it needs to be good. Like what are your experiences with that?
Can I come in on that?
Yes, please.
To answer Neil. So Neil, yeah, good question. I think it's about context. So the problem possibly with our Habit of Art was that it looked quite a high end. Hopefully it was a high end looking product with a sort of reasonably well-known people behind it. And the system is quite impersonal from Vimeo in terms of how they communicate, so that when people were communicating with us, we weren't people, we were just an annoying anonymous person in a call center and then when we replied personally, everyone was very nice and we explained what was happening. So if you can contextualize your event, I saw a Guildford Shakespeare company did something, Wind in the Willows on Zoom. And it was rough and ready in a wonderful way because they're an outdoor theatre company, but that sort of style lended itself. So when things went wrong, they had backdrops that didn't happen. It was all, in fact, it made it even better as an experience because it was live and happening. And you could see the audience responding. It was rough and ready and all the better for it. If you've got an event, I suppose Birdsong is trying to put across with more polish, that sort of stuff I don't think would go down as well. So it's about sort of the style of event you're going for, the presentation of the event, both in the event itself and how you, I suppose, sell and advertise it. And I think that all plays a part. So I think people are very forgiving as long as it's communicated in the right way.
Great. I've just noticed we're on 12:30, so that is our time up, everyone. I can't believe that went so quickly. On a final note on that question, and that was a great answer. Thank you, Alistair. With the digital festival that I'm producing for Southwest Fest at the moment, which is a cultural community festival in London, we're setting expectations. So we've got an online events policy. So anyone who's getting our tickets for our different workshops of different ages will get a link to our events policy, and it really sets out what they can expect from the quality or type of event we're producing. We're pointing out that a lot of it's going to be on Zoom, that we're working with teachers that are using their equipment at home. So where possible, we're just trying to set the expectations, and that event policy for us also has our online safeguarding policy added to it because we do work with families and children. So we're making sure that's on the website. It's going to go out on all our Eventbrite links, and it will also go out in the emails we send to people with their tickets. And I think, you know, we do have to be honest, it's not always going to be a top-notch quality thing. It might be that our internet's slow and we're using a dodgy old camera on our laptops. So if that's the case, I think just being honest and setting expectations with your audiences is worthwhile. Okay, guys, I'm going to sum up. I'm just going to try and share screen and flip my slides, which have gone now. I won't put my slides back on. But thank you ever so much for joining us today. We are going to send out the slides that I had earlier on screen. So you will get those, and that's also got links again to Essex 2020 and to the Always Possible website. Thank you to Frazer, Hannah, to Francis and Herbie, and to Alistair for being amazing speakers today and sharing so much fantastic experience and knowledge. I've learned so much that I'm going to take away and use myself as well. And as we said, any of the links that have been shared will also collate into a resource sheet for you. So thanks very much, and we'll hopefully see you all soon.